Hi, Wes. Hi, Kevin.
Good afternoon, Jackie.
How are you today?
It's all good. It's all good. So is Ray going to join us today, or?
He was at this morning's meeting, so I hope so.
I'm sure he will.
I have a couple of more minutes.
Did you have a good weekend?
Had a great weekend. We went and had an adventure walk through the White Spruce Forest and fed the birds and really had a good time with the kids. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, we did something similar, only going through the Loess Hole and the wetlands and out to the viewing platform, and just a large number of people taking advantage of that. So good to see. How about you, Natalie? Did you have a good weekend?
Oh, it was okay. My dog is still recovering from his injuries, so we're not allowed to do all of our fun things, and he's mad about it. So,
Well,
so we had a nice quiet weekend, which is all right.
Yeah.
And what did happen to your dog? I saw the cone in the bandage.
Yeah, I guess bigger old dogs, what can sometimes happen is they get calluses kind of on their elbows, and he ripped one off.
Oh my.
So he just started bleeding all over my house and went and got it checked out at the vet. And so, yeah, he just has to take it easy, realize that he's not a puppy anymore. He's not there yet.
And he wants to chew that bandage off?
Yeah, it's a pain to have that on there. So yeah, the cone is not fun.
How are you guys?
Hey, Ray. I always remember that movie, the Cone of Shame, right? Isn't that what they called it?
Yeah, the Cone of Shame.
That's from Up.
Up, yes. Up, that's correct.
Cone of Silence was Get Smart.
Oh, there you go.
Hi, Kathy.
Hey, everyone.
Okay, everybody, it's 1:30, and I guess I'm chairing the meeting, so I'll be cognizant of everybody's time. We'll start the meeting, and we'll take attendance, and for committee members, we have Councillor Broadhead, Councillor Watkins, myself, Mayor Herron, and with us we have Councillor Jolly, and I guess we don't have Councillor Hughes or Councillor Mackay. But committee members are here. So we are 100% in terms of committee. So I'll call the meeting to order. And first order of business is the adoption of the agenda. Are there any additions? Wes, want to move it?
I'd be happy to make the motion. I don't have any additions to the agenda.
Perfect.
So I move that the March 8th, 2021 Community Growth and Infrastructure Standing Committee meeting agenda be adopted as presented.
Excellent. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Looking at ledge services, do we have any appointments? Anybody registered to speak? I don't think so.
No, we don't.
Excellent. Thank you, Cheryl. And so moving on to the approval of the minutes. Did anybody see any errors or omissions? Otherwise, can someone move that?
Do that.
Great. Mayor Herron moves the approval of the minutes. All those in favor? That's carried. And on to the main part of the meeting, 6.1, the 10-year growth plan. So I think we're going to hand it over to Diane McMorty.
Good afternoon, committee members. I do just have a really short PowerPoint presentation. Where is it? Can everybody see that okay?
You bet.
Okay, perfect. All right. So this agenda item is before committee today in response to Standard 12 of the Budget and Taxation Guiding Principles Policy, which reads, with specific reference to the Municipal 10-Year Growth Capital Plan, a council motion is required to add or remove a capital project charter to or from the plan. So the current 10-year plan. So the next 9 years of our capital plan, growth capital plan, totals $309 million. Our estimated funding available for the same time period, excluding new debt, is $71 million. It's also important to recognize two things with regards to the funding available for growth in future years. While we're relatively confident in our share of MSI funding over the next 3 years, the grant funding we have used in our estimate for the years out is an estimate at best. Until the local government fiscal framework is put into legislation and we have a better understanding of what the revised allocation formula might look like, we cannot assess the risks to funding. Number two, as per policy, we're committed to funding our RMR needs prior to consideration of growth projects. As our asset management work continues, it is very probable that we will identify new or increased RMR needs, which further erodes our capacity for growth. Without continued increases to our tax-supported capital budget, this problem will continue to grow. So the following charters are being recommended for removal at this time. The rationale for removal has been included in the attachment to today's agenda report. Administration spends significant staff resources developing and updating capital charters on an annual basis. Removal of projects that have little opportunity for funding, given their relative priority, allows this staff time to be utilized towards other important issues facing the organization. Given the large funding gap in our existing plan, committee members may wish to consider additional removals in their recommendations to council. The following charters are being recommended to be added to the 10-year plan. Project briefs have also been included in your package today. Adding projects to the 10-year capital plan does not commit council to any funding. The projects, if agreed to be added to the plan, will be scored and prioritized along with all the others in the plan to inform an administrative recommendation as part of the budget cycle. So that's just sort of a little introduction to the agenda item, and we'll just open it up for any questions. And I'm going to try and unshare my screen if I can figure it out. I don't know how to unshare my screen now.
It's I've done it for a while, but I know I can see everybody in the gallery on the side, so just work on that.
I'll try and figure it out.
I can see everybody. There's small little people, but I can see them all. Councillor Broadhead or Councillor Watkins, or Mayor, or anybody, Councillor Jolly, do you have any questions around the presentation so far?
Yep.
Yes, Councillor Broadhead, go ahead.
Okay, thanks. So I certainly don't have any problem with where this is going. I understand the need to review our capital plan, and but I do have a question, and it's related to a small component here, and this is the storyboard project. And I remember when this was originally introduced, and it was the idea of being able to have people within our community walk around, if I remember correctly, and at the various places within the community where there was a piece of art, or if there was a story to be told, there would be a QR code where they could bring it up on their cell phone, and they would be connected to the story and related to that particular item. Is this in fact what is being talked about here, or is this a different project entirely?
I'm not sure if there's anybody from culture on the call.
Oh, it's here.
Diana,
Okay.
I'm here, and I can speak to that. So the goal is to actually roll this in with a digital app-based or web-based, GIS-based project. So this is not going to be putting physical infrastructure signs into the ground. So that's why this is coming out.
Okay, so the intent is not lost. It's just that the mechanism of providing it is different. Is that correct?
That is correct. You bet.
All right, fair enough. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Well, I'm so glad you said that, Paul, because I had the same questions. I was concerned that we were losing that. Anything else, Wes?
Well, I'll yield the floor here, and then I do have one later on. So I just need to get it so I can ask the question coherently.
Okay. Councillor Watkins, do you have any questions about removal or the report?
Not right now, Madam Chair. Well, maybe I do, like on the IT ones, maybe you could just explain those a bit more, because they're pretty techy when you read what the description of it is, the GIS thing. So like, that's a lot of money. We've taken out a bunch of projects that were like amenities, and we've added in ones that are IT. So maybe we could just talk about those ones again, because those 2 of the 4 or whatever, 2 of the 5 are IT type projects, and they're big numbers.
Yeah,
I think maybe we'll start with Donnie, and she can talk about the asset management one.
Okay, thank you. Because like I said, you can read the report, but it's a fairly technical subject.
Well, Councillor Watkins, I can speak to the EAM Enterprise Asset Management Software that we have put out there as a plan. There's some funds available in the books today to get that going, but when we put out the ITT, the price tag came so high. So we went back and re-looked at it and reprioritized and said, okay, this is not a realistic funding request. So we'll go back to council with the proper one. So what this is and what this entails is the phased approach to getting that asset management software that kind of replaces the current IPS software that currently we use in PW. So which is kind of outdated. We can't improve it. It's a lot expensive in terms of maintaining. So this is kind of an enterprise look, but at the same time, when I say that, I say one size doesn't fit all asset requirements, but this is kind of the best approach that we have come up with as a committee to go forward with that need for a software.
So you say it's expensive in terms of maintenance. So I guess we're at a point where the cost of maintaining it is more than the cost of buying a new system. It's like, kind of like comparable to a car.
Yes, at the same time, the features that we like to add to enhance it, it doesn't have. It's limited in its capability now, but at the same time, the maintenance cost is quite high as well.
Okay, and then the estimates, you say they're quite recent?
Yes, last year, 2020, early, we put out the ITT and we couldn't award it because it came out too expensive.
Early 2020. So the numbers are almost a year old.
Yes.
Very year old, yeah. And maybe somebody else could comment on the, like we have these huge numbers, and they're carried in all these budgets and 10-year plans. And the estimates sometimes may be old, or the estimate may just be, we took last year's number and we added 10% on it. So can somebody just comment generally on how, like on these numbers that we're hearing on the new projects and also on the old projects? Are they old carry forward numbers, or are they updated every year?
I would suggest that it's probably a little bit of both. So some of the projects that are further out in the 10-year plan, I would suggest that there's more just inflationary impacts sort of put on the original estimates. But as they start getting closer to potentially becoming reality, most departments are going out and getting kind of revised costing. And it also kind of depends, I think, where a lot of those projects fall in the 10-year plan in terms of priority. So if they're ones that are kind of a little closer to the top of the priority list, where there, maybe is a chance that they will move forward, then more effort would be put into making sure that we had as up-to-date numbers as we can.
Yeah, and if we generally go to the list of those ones we're deleting, those would have just been estimate numbers, because none of them were kind of close to getting done. Is that correct?
I would suggest there probably hasn't been a ton of costing work done on those in a couple of years anyways.
Okay, and then on the new ones that we're adding, those ones, like Donnie just said, hers were really recent numbers. So the ones you're adding, those numbers were probably pretty recent?
Yes, I would say those numbers are all fairly recent, although I believe in the agenda package, we also kind of explained on the new community amenity site one, kind of the approach we took to that for putting in numbers just for purposes of getting it in the plan.
What page is that on? Maybe I missed that right there.
I'm not sure what page. So basically what we did with the new community amenity site is about a year ago, we presented council with a sort of a bunch of options for different amenities and phasing, you know, just in the really early discussions. And so we basically just pulled those original estimates out just for purposes of putting it in the plan. But of course, as we go through public engagement and the next stages of this site, you know, the amenities and when, you know, the order they would come and those kind of things will be much more flushed out, and then we'll be able to update the plan. But it was just because we were wanting to take sort of the big Service Place ones off. We wanted to make sure that it got replaced with something, because it's not that the amenities are going away. It's just, you know, shifting the focus a bit.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. Those are my questions, Madam Chair.
And just before we leave the enterprise asset management, and then I'll get to you, Mayor. Is there, Donnie, a penalty or anything from discontinuing with IPS and moving on to a new system? Or is that a clean transition?
Not that I'm aware of, but I would let God speak to, because he was looking at the renewal program recently.
So long as we let them know far enough in advance, then there's no penalty.
Excellent. Okay, that's great. Over to Mayor Herron. I've got a bunch of questions on specific projects, but over to Mayor.
Okay, thanks. I got to start with a funny story. So when I saw the $178,000 for a boat launch, I mean, I think it's a great idea, and I think we do need a boat kayak launch or something on the east side of the city, but the price tag got me. And I wish Diane was here too, because I have another question about the fitness center. But I just decided, because I remember Tim Osborne put a motion forward in his term to build the boat launch that we have currently over at Rotary Park. And I said to myself, that was nowhere near $178,000. So I Googled it, and I came up with a Gazette article talking about a budget briefs. And yeah, so just to be sure, that was $25,000 to put that boat launch in. So curious where we went from 25,000 to 178,000, and why is it different?
Yeah, we actually have Manda on the line to speak to this one.
Hello, to Mayor. So the numbers that we got, and we understanding that it is a quite significantly higher number than the Rotary Park dock. We did go to the City of Edmonton and spent a good 3 hours with them talking about their Touching the Water project, and some of the lessons learned from there, some of their costs, and some of the things that they advised us to do moving forward. We know that the Rotary dock, it's a wheel-in dock, and unfortunately when the water levels drop, it's no longer safe because we get a difference between the height of the deck of the dock and the Sturgeon River level. And it's not dangerous in that someone's going to seriously hurt themselves, but it is a concern, especially as we experience these years where the river is fluctuating quite a lot. So when we talked to Edmonton, what they really recommended was a floating dock that's anchored into the bank of the Sturgeon. And what that will do is it'll move a lot more with the water level, allow us a longer season and less risk with the water dropping suddenly, and then having a boat dock basically sticking out in the air. And so we did talk to Edmonton and talk to a couple of consultants to get some numbers. As well, we do need to reestablish some trail if we want to put a new dock in, look at how do we protect the shore. In that location, it's quite muddy and it's eroding right into the river because of all the feet and all the boats. They're pushing the mud right into the river. So there are some upgrades that we need to do in terms of protecting that shore, getting rid of some flowering rush that's on that site already from just people accessing with boats and not cleaning their boats off properly. So it is a lot. It's a much higher investment than Rotary, but it should be much more functional. And it'll also allow us to store the equipment, which we don't have space to store another boat dock right now. So it's a lot of things all combined.
Okay, and I'm fine with it. I mean, hopefully it's the best option and the most practical and economical. But the funny part of the story was when I was Googling this, that also in that same budget brief from 2015 was Councillor Herron was fighting to expand the fitness facilities at Service Place. I put $50,000 in the budget to make the changing rooms improved. And so, and now we're talking about taking it right out of the plan. So that this has been the one piece that has been hanging and needs to be done at Service Place. And it keeps getting pushed off. And I'm just wondering why another feasibility study, which is going to cost money, is the right choice than to just make the investment into the change rooms and expanding the fitness center.
I think Mr. Hiltz wants to answer that here.
Yeah, thanks for the questions, Mayor. And I did ask Diane those questions actually before she.
And Diane will know that I've been wanting to do this forever.
Because I asked her, I said, you know, that was my understanding was a priority. But I think what they wanted to do is they want to kind of do a reset on service and kind of look at what its fitness needs are going to be moving forward with the community amenities coming on site. So kind of looking at it more from the big picture perspective. I don't think that, you know, if we want to just kind of move forward with the change rooms improvements and stuff like that, we may be able to just do that. However, I think they're wanting to kind of recalibrate and look at it from that bigger perspective, like how much space do we need to add for the fitness center components? You know, let's say, for example, if one of the restaurants or something moves out in the future, like reuse of that space and stuff. So it's a reimagination of the service place because it's getting to that age now where we're starting to look at its next iteration.
So how much is the service place feasibility study going to cost? Do we know?
You know that I don't have that in front of me. I'd have to kind of go back. Do we have that information, Diane McMurdy?
I'm not sure if it wasn't included kind of in that attachment. I don't have it.
But we could look at it from a high level perspective. Like it all depends on how far you want to go in the weeds with feasibility studies to how much they cost.
Okay, maybe when this comes to council for the fall budget.
Yeah.
Because honestly, I don't want to take the fitness expansion out until I know what's replacing it. Because I don't want it to get lost. Right?
Yeah. And I don't think that's the intent. Is I think that what they want to do is bring back a new charter.
Maybe even if that could be even high level answered when this comes to council, what that study is going to cost.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like on that, can I just add something to that particular one, Cap?
Yes, you're cheering.
I know. I shouldn't be interrupting you though, really.
Go ahead.
But a feasibility study, would that sort of do a deep dive into how things are post-COVID, like with considerations of putting cameras in there for possible hybrid, in-person, online kinds of classes?
I think we're open. Like, you know, what this is if we want to just kind of deal with the fitness component side of things, you can kind of, your feasibility studies can go as far down the rabbit hole as you want them to go. And that's what you're going to pay for. So you can do your $25,000 one that kind of looks at it from a big picture perspective, or we can spend $75,000 or $100,000 and do it a lot more elaborately. So I guess that's the question is we would need to kind of relook at all of those different components, then come back with a reasonable feasibility study if we wanted to go into that virtual world of offering fitness and stuff.
Okay. Sorry, Mayor Herron, carry on.
Okay. The next one, I guess, really is about the new rec center. I feel like, and this is a question for Diane, I think, why we need to put $140 million into our budget when we have no idea what we're building. So I guess the question is, what's the rush? We've got the money, the $1 million to do the public consultation. Why do we have to put in numbers that are completely relevant? Like you've got our turf and arena. You actually have 2 turf fields in there. Anyway, it's irrelevant because it's not real. So it scares people when they see $140 million going into our budget. We're taking out 40. I get that for the other 2 minis, the additions to service, but we're adding 140 in. So help me understand why we need to do that today.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was just the intent that it's put in as a placeholder. So when we're really looking at the future, we know that's a big project coming up. It's, you know, a big priority for the city, this site. And yes, we don't know what amenities are going to end up being built in what years. It was really intended to be a placeholder, really just so that it kind of stays on the radar as knowing that we're planning for this. With the intent that once some of that community engagement is done and some of that staging, that will be completely replaced with something that's more realistic. But I guess we just didn't want to lose it. And I didn't want to put in, and like I said, I just literally pulled out, you know, what we had presented to council as one of the potential options, like way back. And I just didn't want to put forth other numbers that you hadn't even seen before, and I'm not sure what I would have based them on, right? So we just went back to that original presentation to council of what could potentially be included
So
on
are you
that site.
saying it's better to err ridiculously high than too low? Because I would say, sure, let's put 50 million in. I'd be fine with that, but not 140. And then really, what difference does it make? So that's because 138,970 seems pretty accurate. It's not rounded up or anything. It's anyway.
And yeah, those initial estimates were based on like cost per square foot for those types of facilities in other municipalities. Like that's where some of that costing had originally kind of come from. So yes, it looks very specific, but you're right. It's really not. I mean, we'd be open to just reducing the value that we're putting in there. We just want to have it as a placeholder so that it's on the radar. I think Carrie wants to say something.
Okay.
Yeah. I think, you know, during the council strategic planning session, we heard from council, you know, talking about, you know, those amenities that are quick and easy to add, you know, that don't cost a lot, like we're adding the fields, or we're adding the bike park, or we're adding those type of amenities that, you know, you're talking $5 to $10 million would be able to get us there. And I think as we kind of go through that community consultation, we get that further direction from council during the budget debates, and that's going to set that framework, because you're going to be able to do this in phases. So you're going to have that phase 1, phase 2, probably phase 3, over a number of years to build that site out. So if your phase 1 is $10 million, that's what that would look like. And then you'd have a phase 2, which could include indoor arenas or pool or something like that. And phase 3 could be what are those other amenities. But I think we kind of have to have that bigger conversation. But I think when the 140 million came out, it was like, you build this site out at a certain standard based on the recommendations per square foot for arenas or pools or whatever else. So a pool, $50 million, let's say $25 million per arena, you know, it's X number of million for this. So that's what that whole build out was, that original vision. Now that's shifting.
Yeah. I think what we need to do, Carrie, is prepare some comms. Like,
Yeah.
We are not committing $140 million today to build a rec center. And that's what it looks like. That's
Okay.
what I'm worried about more than anything. So this will hit the Gazette on Wednesday and my inbox will fill up. So
Yeah.
I just want
Fair
to
enough.
be very vocal that that's not what we're approving.
Yeah, I think Paul's is on the call, and he can jump. He can have that. He waved at me saying he's got that handle.
Thank you.
So get that ready to, yeah, because I think the message we heard last week was basically it's looking at those quick and easies, and that's going to change. That'll change that framework a bit.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
Is that it for you for now, Mayor?
Yeah, I think Wes is trying to.
Yeah, he is. And
Okay.
honestly, I'm going to let Wes go, but it might be easier for us to sort of deal with the ones getting removed and then the ones getting added rather than jumping up too many places, unless you've only got a couple here, Wes. So go for it.
Well, the only reason why I was waving my hand here is that I wanted to support your comment there, Madam Mayor, around the communication related to the capital plan. And just what came to me as you were talking, and I know Paul gave the thumbs up that he's on it, but the opening of your presentation, Diane, said that, you know, we've got a plan of 300 and some odd million, but our capacity is only X. And the minute you contrast that, then all of a sudden here's this, you know, we're 100 and some odd million short of our plan, you know, and all of a sudden the temperature within the community is raised because of this massive infrastructure plan that we don't have funding to cover. So I was just supporting Madam Mayor there, and I just wanted to say, as we introduce this into council, maybe just watch how we present it on a go-forward basis. So, Madam Chair, back to you, and you can, however, I got a couple of questions about the projects, but as you define how we're going to go through it, and then we'll go through it.
Yeah, I think it's been good conversation, but I'd like to get a little bit focused. So let's just start with the growth removals, and that's the chart is page 10 of your package. And I have some questions about most of these projects, but I'm just going to open it up to questions. And Councillor Jolly, I haven't seen your hand up, so I haven't gone to you yet, so all good.
Nope, this is a great conversation.
Okay, good. So let's concentrate on page 10 of our package on the removals and have a conversation about that. Anybody besides me?
I support removal of all of them.
Do you?
Yep.
Okay.
We need to trim down this capital plan, and I think this is a good start.
Okay. And Councillor Watkins and Councillor Broadhead. Anything specific around this page?
Yeah, I'd like to keep the pool in there for now. 25-meter, 6-lane pool.
Okay.
Yeah.
I had just some specific questions. Is that it for you? Right?
Yeah, it's pretty overfunded, and like I said, if we're gonna, I have the same concerns about throwing in $138 million rec center and how that's going to be perceived, and like numbers rounded to 20 million per year are like pretty rounded numbers, and we're gonna get criticized for that. It's just my comment on that.
Yeah, except what I'm hearing on that one is that we all agree with the concept of having a placeholder, but having a ginormous number attached to it like that is not accurate because we don't even know.
I'd rather not have it in there than have a huge number like that. Just not have it in. Like,
okay,
we don't have a plan and we're not funding it yet, and we don't have a way to fund it, and we don't even have a design for it. Why are we putting it in now? Even, I guess, is the question.
Mayor?
I guess my question for Carrie would be, if we keep the 25-meter 8-lane pool attached to Service Place in our capital plan, you're going to continue to work towards building that when council's given you clear direction that we don't want to build that. We've had at least 2 votes on that. So we've told you the direction is to go up to the new rec center. So I think maybe Ray's concern, Ray, you can correct me, is it's not so much the removal of fitness or of the pool, sorry, it's the number for the new rec center is just too big. But is that, am I right?
Well, it's kind of both at this point. It's like we're taking out the pool and we're putting in $139 million number for a rec center, and
but we're taking out the pool attached to Service Place. We're not taking out aquatics. It's still part of the new rec center. But we've given direction to staff to not build a pool at Service Place. Yeah. So Carrie, yeah, the question is,
it's just, for me, it's optics. That's just my point. Yeah. I prefer to leave it in. That's just my vote.
I get the optics side, Ray, but I just want to know what kind of work that puts on staff's shoulders to still continue to plan for a pool service when we have no intention of building there.
Well, I'm not asking to do more work on the project whatsoever. I'm just saying leave it in the plan.
But they do every year. They update it and they try to refine the numbers. And
well, I don't know how it's every year they update it. It sounds like we just heard about them updating it. It doesn't sound like they do too much work on the old ones. So I don't think they're spending a lot of time updating it every year. If that's the thing.
Carrie?
Yeah, I don't think there's not a lot of work if it's just basically staying as a placeholder. There's kind of 2 different ways of looking at it. It can be removed and then it can be added back in the future if that's the direction of a future council, like after we do the needs assessment and consultation. But we did get our message that council had the desire to have the new facility up at the community amenities site at Range Road 260. So that's the direction that we are looking at moving it right now. But it really, there's not a lot of work by maintaining it. It's just that we have 2 competing projects on the books.
Okay, well, that's fair enough, but okay, I'm going to just jump in with some of my questions, which honestly, I said, I don't want to lose this. And it was the same reason why I wanted it kept on the books last year, because once the pool goes, we've got aquatics in a 7-year on a piece of land on the west kind of out there, but we have nothing on the books, which is the only thing that concerns me. I guess if the commitment's there, it's there, but this is the project charter that said the commitment was there. So we take it off, we don't have it on the books anymore. So Carrie, do you want to comment on that?
I'm just going to throw out a suggestion here. Maybe what we should just have in the charter is we have an aquatics line, opposed to identifying that it's at 260 or if it's at Service Place. It's just that aquatics at a dollar figure. because what's going to show up is that we have, like you guys are commenting about the high level of our capital wants and needs as it moves to the future. We're going to have that 40 million in there twice, once at the community amenity site and then once at Service Place as well. So this is a way of maybe it's broken off and, you know, having aquatics line in there, and then through the community needs assessment and consultation, wherever it goes from council's direction. But we did hear very clearly from council at the last budget or the last budget debates that it's moving to the Range Road 260. And I don't think it's gonna be lost because everybody, you know, we're going to continue to hear that aquatics are important. It was a, you know, when they had the community vote in 2017 or 18, the aquatics was #1. So again, I think that it's going to stay towards the top. It's just a big ticket item.
Okay, Wes, did you have your hand up? No. All right, well, that was it. Down to the city parking lot structure upgrades. I have no problem getting rid of this, but how many parking lots are we even talking about?
I think this is for Donnie or Adrian or someone.
Yeah, I can speak to that, and Dean's online if he wants to add to it. I think we have 10 on the books now, 10 parking lots on the project charter.
And so this is just, so we take this off and then just nothing is done until at one point in time we think they need to be upgraded?
That's right, as part of any development permit or anything associated with that land use.
Okay.
Is that when we get upgraded? Yeah.
Okay. How long has this been on the books?
Probably 6 years. Dean, maybe correct me if I'm wrong. You're on mute, Dean.
Sorry, I'm just looking at the charter document itself. It should give some kind of answer.
Oh, okay, I didn't look.
When it started, but it's been quite some time.
Okay. That's fine, Dean. I'm okay with that. I just wanted to ask those questions. The pool, I guess we've answered, although I am reluctant to get rid of it, but understanding we're still going to go ahead, that's okay. I had the same kind of question for the 6th arena, but I will, it fits in with the pool. Fitness expansion, I'm with the mayor. When I read the description here, it says the current project charters, and it talks about multiple charters. So I guess my question was, how many charters are there? Or are we just talking about a fitness expansion charter?
I'm aware of 2, but Diana, do you know?
No, I'm not sure what multiple
thought-
charters they'd be talking about.
Because I think they had one that was kind of looking at the expansion of the actual weight room kind of stuff. Then they had this other one about fixing up
Change rooms
stuff,
and
but
stuff. Yeah.
it could have been part of the same, but I know there's the 2 kind of parts of it.
Okay,
I
well,
don't know, is
we
anyone
need
from
to,
rec on here?
I just would be, I think that something does need to be done with the change room. So I guess the question is going to be whether we do this feasibility study or we just keep fitness expansion on the books. So we can have that discussion. Oh,
I guess Kelly is online. So Kelly,
great.
Can you answer that question?
Yeah, I believe there was a charter that was initially done back in 2010 to 11. It was the plan for the future Service Place. Further to Mayor Herron's comment, we did do an update of that, and that charter replaced the original one, and it gave us with some updated pricing and a few revisions to the plan. So it was kind of two charters, but it did evolve into one as we know it today.
Okay, so we are just talking about this this particular charter.
Correct.
Okay, good. And finally, the storyboards we answered. We're not losing that. We're just implementing it with I guess a more techie way rather than hardcore signs on the walks, right? So that is it. I see Councillor Mackay's on the line. That is it for page 10. I guess are there changes that any councillors want to make to this page 10? Mayor Herron has said she's good with it all. And I'd just like to hear from others just so that we know what we're trying to pass here today.
Well, I'm certainly good with what's presented here today, particularly after the discussion around moving and encapsulating some of the projects that we wanted in the plan, moving towards the amenity sites. So it's more of an in and an out or a movement between the plan than anything else.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And Councillor Watkins?
I'm good.
Okay. Councillor Mackay, we're just finishing off removals from the capital plan, and we're the consensus is we're good with this. Listed on page 10. Are you good?
Yeah, I'm not going to jump in halfway through the conversation and add my 2 cents worth. The only thing that I would have, and I'm even hesitant to even mention it because I obviously missed the first half hour. Where would I find the project charters that are there right now? Like, is there an actual, where would I actually go if I had to look for them? And I apologize if I'm asking a question that's already been asked.
No, it has not been asked.
So for the new additions that we're requesting to add, we did actually attach them to this agenda report. But for the remainder of the 10-year capital plan, those would have been included in the in your budget documents last year.
So yeah, so that's so I went looking back. I mean, just because of the question in relation to how many charters there were, like there's not one big vault where we keep project charters in, for lack of a better term.
So like I mentioned, so as part of your 2021 budget package, the proposed budget that went out, we would have had the current 21 charters in there, and then on the council site, we would have had the remainder of the charters for the 10 years. So they should be all together.
Yeah, if I just want to look, I did some preliminary looking in my 2021 budget documents, and I did see these ones, but I was interested and curious as to see kind of some of the history, and that's where I was going, but I picked up the conversation later. So I can do this. If I wasn't clear, I'll do it offline and then not to rehash over comments. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I think you're on mute, Councillor Hanson.
Don't tell her she's on mute. Don't.
Geez, I just about ran out of breath. I was talking too much. Thanks for that, Dan. Page 12 is the summary of the proposed growth additions to the 10-year capital plan. We've sort of talked around them, but now's the time to pull out any specifics that committee members or Councillor Mackay you have around this before we somebody moves everything. Nothing?
I can jump in on the Kingswood Park, excuse my language, boat dock. Can I ask a question on that?
Are you going to ask why it's so expensive?
No, but I guess, yes, I am. I'm actually, considering the site and some of the comments in the charter, I was wondering whether that's actually going to be enough, because you potentially are going to have environmental concerns. You're going to have the charter identified that there is concerns in relation to kind of the slope. I'm just wondering, does that include all the consultation, all of the engineering, and then the actual cost to build it?
Thank you, Councillor Mackay. Yes, we do believe that it is sufficient. The actual infrastructure, the boat dock itself, isn't that expensive. It's the assessments and the environmental work. The only thing that we're uncertain of is how long approvals would take, because we do need several permits if we go to a different style of dock instead of a wheel-in dock. So, but we do believe that the funding should be sufficient to achieve it.
Okay, I was just, yes, I initially thought that was a lot of money, but then we looked at the Bless platform and look at the cost that was. So I'm just worried about whether or not we get it in and then we find out that it's not sufficient. So, okay, fair enough. Thank you.
Thank you. We've had a little bit of a conversation on the enterprise asset management growth charter proposal. Any further discussion on that, or are we good? Councillor Broadhead.
Yeah, just one question in relation to that. So enterprise resource management, correct me if I'm wrong, the idea is that you'd have this sort of overarching platform that spoke to all the other programs within the the city so that you would coordinate and find efficiencies through the coordination of purchasing and all of those things. Is that what's happening here in St. Albert? And does this new system feed into something like that? Like we've always heard of things like SAP and that sort of program.
Yeah, if I could just jump in, Councillor Broadhead. So this isn't about enterprise resource management. This is asset management. So this is a completely different kind of system than what you're referring to.
But they don't speak at all these days?
I mean, we would work for it to work with some of our other systems, but it isn't so much for managing like client interactions and those things. It's for us to be able to manage all of our assets and the maintenance that's being done on them and their life cycle and their assessment and replacement values and stuff is more what this is focused on.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on to the next one. Any comments, questions about the municipal area network expansion, the MAN? MAN?
On International Women's Day, I suggest we change that to the WOMAN.
That's a good idea.
You know, that's usually me that comes out with that, Ray.
I know, Ken, I stole your thunder there.
I was desperately trying to figure out what WO could stand for, but.
It's interesting though, just as an aside, Madam Chair, is that we were having a conversation this morning around connectivity and how you have to be intentional about providing the infrastructure to support what's happened in society over the last year. We're fortunate in St. Albert that we can do what we're doing today, because many parts of the province, this type of meeting is completely out of the question, simply because they don't have bandwidth within their communities. And every time we can strengthen our infrastructure in terms of our IT infrastructure in the community, I think we're better off. Just a comment.
Thank you for that. When I read this, I mean, I got quite excited about the potential of this, but I just find that it almost sounds like it's a little bit of a silver bullet to resolving all of our connectivity issues in St. Albert and all of the departments talking to each other. So anyway, I'm fine with this. I think as Wes says, we're very lucky to be putting this forward. So if I hear no other comments, I'm just going to move on to, I believe is maybe our last one. A community amenity site. So with this one, we've got a gigantic price tag attached to it. So do we want to accept this with some amendments?
I just had a comment that generally, like, I know that we've talked about contingencies, and I always harp on contingencies. And correct me if I'm wrong, when we make these contingency estimates that are years out, we have like a 50% contingency. When we make these estimates that are like 3 years out, we have a 50% contingency on them. That's kind of my understanding. And like that just overinflates this number to gigantic proportions and makes it look even worse. So what are the contingencies on numbers like this when we're just kind of eyeballing it, because we don't even have a plan or anything, and we come up with an estimate of $140 million?
Yeah, I'll start, and then I'll probably have Kevin kind of jump in on the contingency part because of from the engineering side. When you're kind of looking at these, one of the issues that you kind of run into is that a pool can cost 30 million, 40 million, 50 million, 60 million, and that's giving you exactly the same structure. It's just basically it's fit and finish. From there, depth, all of those kind of parts there. Same thing with arenas. You could build the same size arena for $7 million, $11, $12 million, or $20 million. It comes down to fit and finish again. So when we're kind of looking at this, yes, there's huge estimate, there's huge scope. But I think when we're looking at this, we're kind of looking at a good solid amenity probably towards the middle to higher side of things. So for example, a pool might be at the $40 million range, an arena might be at the $15 to $20 million range. And so you're putting those things together, that's how they would kind of add up to those numbers. But if council gave the direction saying that they want to go with the lower, lower costing amenities or set the budget at X number of dollars, then we'd see how we would fit those amenities within that. Now, in terms of the estimates itself, I'll let, I don't know if Kevin wants to jump in and kind of talk about the estimates when we're far out.
Okay, just before he jumps in though, see if we use a number of, say the number, like you said, 30 to 50, if we use 30 million and we put a 50% contingency on it, that's 45. If we use 50 million and we put a 50% contingency on it, that's 25 million. It's almost the price of the low end of the facility. So I mean, it's really gonna, it's almost like we're taking an estimate and we shouldn't be putting a 50% contingency on it this far out at this point. And we should kind of pick a finish, which it seems like you've picked medium to high.
Yeah,
so.
and I think the other issue that comes into play is that, so we estimate low right now, and we come in and we say, okay, the facility is going to cost 100 million. And then we come to actually starting to the design part, or we're looking at the building and estimates, and all of a sudden the facility is going to be 150. Then we get, the conversation is how are you so out?
Yeah, I know.
Administration. So it's such a balancing act that we have to play with. We are kind of looking.
It's a balancing act between not underestimating this facility so you look bad, and overestimating it with too much contingencies that it looks like it's a ridiculous number, right? Yeah. Like I said, a 50% contingency on a number is a gigantic contingency. And I understand the reason for it, but I'm just saying it could make us look totally like unreasonable when we had a 50% contingency on a number, and it's not ever going to cost near that much. So if we take middle to high and then add 50%, that's that if it goes as according to plan, that would build us a Cadillac.
Yeah. And I think as you go through the process, you're kind of understanding the build conditions that you're working in. Like, there's the geotechnical conditions, topography conditions, how far you need to service things, even when the servicing's at the site and everything. And all those things are going to add onto that cost. Right. And we don't know any of that right now. So anyways, I'm good.
I would almost rather work to a number. I would almost rather work to a number than try to work to an estimate for now, or coach it some way, because like I said, when this comes out in the paper, it's going to be like, how do we come up with these numbers?
Yeah, it's almost TBD, but I'm going to let Kevin talk.
Thanks. So just a couple comments. Like earlier in the meeting here, it was said a number of times, like council's not saying, committee and then on to council's not saying yes or no to anything. This is a planning exercise. And I just wanted to be clear about that. Like there's different philosophical approaches to this, and on the two ends of the spectrum, neither is right or wrong. You can put all in a worst case scenario, and that could be perceived to paint a bleak picture, or you could leave things out or keep them low or whatever, and that may perhaps paint a rosy picture, which may not be realistic either, right? So it's really philosophical. Like I said, most important is to be consistent with all the projects in the plan. You don't want some that are kind of worst case scenario, and you don't want some that are understated, so to speak, because that's where a lot of this stuff can happen. Like in terms of 50%, like we're not even, like we can't even say that. This is a planning exercise. 50% would come with your conceptual design, which we haven't even started yet, right? And so we'd want to do community engagement, which is the plan for this year and through into 2022. And then once we get that and some feedback from the next council, then we start putting the pieces of the puzzle together on the site and start doing some costing there, right? And in addition, understanding our on-site costs and our geotechnical, our on-site servicing costs and geotechnical as well. So it's a very complex and nebulous thing. Maybe nebulous is the better word at this point. What fit and finish, what amenities, that sort of thing, right? So, and again, Cadillac, Chevette, or somewhere in between, building a Malibu, right? So.
Rogue. Councillor or Mayor Herron, and then Wes, did you have something?
No, that's fine, Madam Chair.
Mayor?
Yeah, so honestly, I don't really care. I mean, I'm glad Paul's got his own camera on and listening intently, because this is really about communication to the public. the way it's presented looks like we have a plan. Looks like we're going to spend 8.37. Like it looks like we have a project charter, which we don't. I would have rather seen 15 million in every year for 10 years. That would get us to 150 million, because that would perception wise look like we have money set aside for it, but we have no idea. Question marks would have been just as fine. I don't care. But this looks too prescribed. And that's all I was asking initially. So
And I believe administration would be perfectly open to taking that kind of an amendment from committee at this time, so that we, we have something again that, like you said, it if you're using rounded numbers on over a period of time, it just looks more like a placeholder, which is all it's intended to be in the first place, rather than an actual plan. So
yeah, a rounded number would say, okay, we have 15 million every year, and I don't know what that is going to entail, if it's going to be geotechnical or the pedestrian overpass or the actual pool. It doesn't matter. It's that we just have this money set aside towards this project. So that might make me feel more comfortable. It might make it clear for the public as well. And then the next council can really maybe debate what's our upper limit that we're ever going to spend on this. And if they cut it off at 60, then take out the last few years or whatever, or find other people to partner with. As Jackie put into the chat, we might have partners for phase 2 and 3. And lots of these community groups have offered to build these things on their own and just need land. So anyway, if any amendments were to happen, I would just say let's round out some of the numbers to tally up to $140 million over 10 years.
Okay,
That's
so
all
I think I mean, I had asked in the chat, do we even need to put down a number? It sounds like you have to put something down, but I think that administration understands what we're trying to say here, and that we don't want to put something out and have the public think that this is what it's going to cost and this is what the plan is, because we're just so far from that now. But the plan is, there's a concept out there that we're working towards, but we haven't figured the concept out completely yet. So, but we are we're committing to having a community amenity site. Mm-hmm. So, are there any last questions around this one? Okay. Oh,
do we need an amendment today or do we not?
Do we need one, or does administration know where we're going with this?
I feel like you'd need to amend the motion that's in front of you, because you'd be just recommending what's on the attachments. So if you're going to recommend something different, I think there'd need to be some kind of amendment. Maybe Mr. LaFleur could help us wordsmith that.
I'm just going to let Mr. Scoville speak.
Yeah. So again, this is introductory today, and this is part of the overall plan. These are just the suggested or recommended additions and deletions to the plan, right? But council still needs to take a look at the big picture. Like, what is your funding envelope? Like, you need to consider the projects being added today along with all the other projects that are already in the plan, which I think Diane said is, I think the plan all in is like 310 million. I think I heard at the beginning of the meeting, 307, something like that. So, this is actually the initial step of council's planning exercise going forward. And you look at your funding envelope, as Diane was pointing out at the beginning there, we have a deficit, and we do get into prioritization, or perhaps, as I think Councillor Watkins mentioned it earlier in the meeting, you can also get into set prices. Council of the day could say, we got $60 million for a rec facility and that's it. And go out to the market and say, what do you get for 60 million, right? That is a strategy that's used sometimes. Instead of saying, here's what we want, what's it going to cost? You can say, here's what we got, what do we get for it, right? So, but I guess I would just caution that this is really the beginning of the planning, the overall plan, planning the overall plan, I guess you could say. If you want.
Okay, thank you for that. So maybe what we can do is it moving 2 motions or 1 motion? I don't know. Recommendations. Oh, it's 4. And then make an amendment, and then a councillor or a mayor could make an amendment to, I don't know, Mr. LaFleur, can you help us? Maybe he's not there. Yeah, he's there.
I'll make a motion. I'll move the recommendation, if you'd like, Madam Chair.
Well, there's 4 recommendations.
I'd move them all.
And are we going to go to the full capital plan with questions?
Yeah, I did want to go to that next, so I had one more question on that. So just before we go to that, and Councillor Watkins, and then I'll you can be the mover. Down to page 24, I believe it is. Oh no, 25. Any questions on the full growth plan there? Councillor Broadhead, oh no, Mayor Herron, and then Councillor Broadhead.
A quick question for maybe Donnie. We have ENG 073 and ENG 077. One is Fowler Way, one is Neil M. Ross Road. Neil M. Ross Road has a little side note that says off-site levies 100%. So meaning we'll get the money back over time? Is that correct?
That's what we yeah, that's what it's inferred out of 100%
Why would
offset levy.
Fowler Way be different?
I think currently it's not fully funded from offset levy. It's 50-50. Maybe I need to pull up the project charter to actually look at it.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't have the charter right in front of me too, but it could be relevant to the first 2 lanes and or whatnot's applicable to the actual what's within the current offsite levy model. I'd have to. We may take that as an information request and kind of look to touch base in regards to what's been incorporated within the model and not.
I mean, we put the whole price of the project in the budget, and then we collect after. So I guess maybe for clarity, ENG 073 Fowler Way should have a % offsite levies beside it. And I actually don't think Neil M. Ross is 100% offsite levies because I know the city is paying some of it. Are we not?
Neil Ross it should be very similar to Fowler Way in terms of the percentage, because it'd be, again, what that percentage split is in terms of the first staging and final. But I'd have to look at, I think one of the concerns that I would have in saying anything right now is it could be relevant to what's in the model to date. So okay. I just want to make sure
I do not need an answer from either of you right now. I just, when I read this, it looks, both those roads are similar type of roads.
Correct, yeah.
And they should be treated the same, but one in the project plan looks like it's offset levies, one looks like it's 0 offset levies. So it's not clear, right? It's just the way it's presented. And then the only other question I had is about Millennium Park design, phase 2 and construction. Who can help with that one? Amanda is jumping in, thanks. You know, Mr. Scoble, I think, hit the nail on the head when we were talking about the rec center, about what the tolerance is. And I think that was my problem when I read the addition of 130 million or 140 million dollars. I don't have that high of a tolerance for a rec center. I have a 50 to 60 million dollar tolerance for a new rec center. And the reason I don't have 140 is because Millennium Park is so important to me. I want to see this park built. It's going to be really a huge asset to our community. Plus, we've already invested $100,000 in placemaking into it. So, Amanda, you have it. You have a couple years break. Like, there's no construction between in 24 and 25, and then 27. So, is there any way to condense this?
Yeah, to respond, Mayor Herron, absolutely. Administration looked at completely rephasing the project. We know that there are some short-term improvements we could make to make it more functional, allow expansions of the farmers market if that moves back downtown, get it cleaned up. It does need some landscaping work and some trail connection work that we felt we could get it into a more functional state in the short term. And looking at the 10-year capital plan, we looked at what might be reasonable in terms of parks investment over that 10-year and kind of stretched it further out. It absolutely could be condensed down to about a 2-year construction period, but it would require that investment in that 2-year period. So that's the reason it's stretched out, is just to minimize the impact in any 1 year.
All right. Has the project charter changed since we last saw it?
We did rephase it for last year's submission. So it's essentially the same as last year's.
So it would be in my budget document from this fall?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'll go look at it then. I wasn't proposing taking it out of the 10-year capital plan at all. That's all.
Okay, great. Thank you for that, Amanda. Over to Councillor Broadhead and then Councillor Watkins.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Certainly support the completion of Millennium Park. I'm with you there. question around the Heritage Park phases 3 and 4. My question comes up. We've talked a lot about the land availability and whether or not that the land that we have there, has there been any change, I guess is my question. And we've got significant dollars associated with that over the next 2 years. There's no external sort of constraint that would cause us not to be able to complete our building plan here.
So Councillor Bradhead, I'm not sure if there's anybody on the call right now that can speak to that. Unfortunately, we only kind of invited people for the adds and deletes and not so much for the whole 10-year plan because I wasn't anticipating those questions. So some of them we may have to take as an information request.
Yeah, fair enough. I'm trying to dance around a topic that perhaps should be in camera, but just want to make sure that if we're going to commit to that in the next year, because the closer it is to year one of the plan, the more solid the plan is. And if you've got $1 million in there to construct, I'm just want to make sure that there's no stopping point that we get 6 months away and then said we can't do it. So anyway, I'll submit an information request then. Thanks, Diane.
Thank you. And Councillor Watkins.
Yeah, this is just, I'm just thinking about this recreation facility and this number of 140 million and maybe another way to come at it and to come at it with one number. And I'm wondering do we have, or would it be hard to have such a list that would say like Millennium Place, Spruce Grove, Service Place, Collicut, Jamie Platts, a couple centers, like this includes this and this is the size of it. And in today's dollars, it would cost to build it X dollars. Like, is that something that's hard to do? Because then you would have this kind of reference of all these different centers. And if you built it today, this is what it would cost. And that may be more of a realistic number than taking pieces and just kind of summing them up to a list to 140. So I guess my question is there such a list, or is that hard? Would that be hard to do, to say, to build these, here's like 10 rec centers in the province. And if we built them today in today's dollars, it would cost X million. And I'm not looking for a huge exercise here. I'm just looking for kind of
what we can do is, what we can probably look at, Councillor Watkins, is over the past, I think there's probably 5 or 7 years, there's been 7 or 8 major recreation centers built in the province. And we can probably project what those dollars cost in those years of build. For example, Grand Prairie, they built their aquatic center, was $100 million.
Yes.
When, the Meadows and stuff like that was $250 million. So we have those from those dates. It's a question of, can we actually project? Because basically then that comes into those numbers of fit and finish and everything. But we can probably provide a list of what those things cost. I'm just not sure about the projecting of what it would cost today to build.
Today's, yeah. Well, like you could just, just slap some, like if it was built 2 years ago, just slap an inflation number on it for 2 years or something like that. And as long as you state how you got there, then I feel really comfortable with that. And then that kind of gives everybody kind of a scope of okay, if we spend 30 million, this is what we're going to get. Because it seems to me like, correct me if I'm wrong, the estimate was kind of basically a sum of the pieces being built. Like, we're going to build a piece this year, and then next year we're going to build this piece, and next year we're going to build that piece, which is probably the most inefficient way to build something anyways, right? So just comment.
Yeah, I guess the only thing I'll add, and Donnie can jump in. I know when we were doing that sort of original costing, I mean, they were based on facilities that have been built sort of recently. Okay. So they are based on a particular size of a pool and a particular size of an arena. And maybe it's just not detailed enough in the charter to explain kind of where that came from. But they certainly are based on existing facilities and are based on a certain scope. So if that scope changes, obviously the price tag changes along with it. Is that correct, Donnie?
I was just going to try and find the original document. I couldn't find it fast enough, but you're right. I think Jamie Platts was one of the arenas that Diane has focused on to come up with the initial cost estimate that we have currently.
All right. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks. Ken, do you have any questions on the municipal growth plan?
Yeah, just some clarification, and just based on the last conversation. I mean, Lewis Estates one is proposed, and it's over 300 million. but it's Cadillac, to use that term. Actually, it's probably Mercedes. The question I have, just for clarification, if so, looking on page 25, 20, you know, and then the takeaway from today is potentially to look at maybe if we wanted to take other ones off of there, or kind of have that and come back to council with that, or come back before council. How are we supposed to get that feedback back to administration if we needed either further clarification, or if we wanted to say, I think we should take this one off? What's the process?
I would suggest there could probably be two ways. You could probably potentially bring it up today and have the discussion and come to a committee recommendation that we could then include going to council. Or if you need more time to think about it, we could potentially schedule another time for like almost like a notice of motion, you know, that then another one be brought, and then we wouldn't bring the final plan back for approval until that had all been kind of flushed out.
Well, no, it's not so much. I mean, I was just looking at the process. So like, for example, Trans 004, that was unfunded in 2021. Moving forward, because I went back through our like looking at all the project charters in the budget, but then so going forward it's 2.5. But then now we've just been notified that the federal government's willing to potentially kick in significant dollars for electric buses, because we changed our focus and moved over to diesel because electric was too cost prohibitive. So I mean, my question would be, how do we move things in and out? Because I mean, that's, I guess that's always maybe that's a hypothetical question, but I'm just trying to find a way to build off of what the mayor was saying in relation to Millennium. And at the same time, I mean, I'm looking at some of these DARP ones, and they've been there forever, and they're like 730, you know, 217.5. Like, if I want to get rid of them and leave it up to the next council to either say, what are we going to do with them or not? So should I be doing that today, or should I be doing that as part of some sort of another process?
I mean, I guess the concept of removing stuff from the plan, though, is that we would sort of no longer talk about it unless council brought it up again, right? So because we also have the issue of things being unfunded, right? I mean, 2/3 of our growth capital plan is unfunded every year and just kind of keeps getting kind of pushed forward. So there's that kind of funding issue. So this would be for things that, you know, I would think council would suggest that, you know, given their relative priority, you know, are they likely to ever receive funding? And if not, should we consider just removing them from the plan, and so that we don't continue to work on them and present them every year if there's not really an opportunity for funding, or now it's no longer a priority. Maybe it was a priority when it was first put on the capital plan, you know, was important for the community, but maybe things have changed.
I'm sort of building off of Councillor Watkins' comments in relation to, I mean, for example, some of the medium improvements, pedestrian improvements, they're not out until 2026, 2028. And you're looking at, well, I mean, honestly, like, how do we even have a conversation about keeping them on when we could be taking them off? And if they, you know, again, and I looked at the project charter, I mean, and, you know, you need a one of those Super 8 balls or something to determine whether or not you're going to be looking at the future that far ahead. Because, so, I mean, I'm just saying, I mean, yeah, we could take them off, and then it'd be up to administration to come back and say, we need these improvements, and put them back on for another earlier year or closer to the cost estimate. So, I mean, that was, when I was reading this, the backgrounder, and I thought the directions were that if we wanted to have some more taken off, we would potentially have an opportunity to come back and say, well, I need to, maybe I would like this one off, and then have administration say why it should be on or not, or agree. So that's kind of where I'm struggling with the whole process right now. I thought we did that last year. I thought we were given X number of days to come back with kind of some of our ideas or proposals or thoughts, and then that would be incorporated into the final motion.
Yeah, it is the third motion. Our third recommendation is that we review for additional removals. So my question on that was, were we doing that today, or were we doing that at a different time?
Yeah, that's where I kind of got the idea, because
well, it says council, that council undertake that, so we're not council.
Right, but are we setting a date aside for that, or? Yeah. I wasn't, like, I think that might have been maybe last year's recommendation put in this year's. I don't know if we're doing the same thing.
Well, we definitely want to give that opportunity to council to put forward further recommendations for removal. So we would have to just, I guess, develop a process that would support that.
Okay.
Yeah,
Kevin, do you wanna
just
say
a-
something?
Sorry, Kevin, I talked over you.
Or just a general comment. So again, like council owns this plan, like it's the prerogative of council, how you want to treat this, how you want to handle it. So, you know, administration is open to whatever the committee recommends to council, having a workshop, having a month to take a look at it. Any of that's fair game. It's the council owns this, not administration. So.
Okay, perfect. I have one question on the municipal growth plan. Is everybody else kind of done? Okay. My question, I think, is for Gord, and it's on ENG's, I gotta put my glasses on here, 069, I think it says, IT strategy implementation. Given the two proposed additional growth charters that were the asset one and the man, is that included in this, or are they connected? Are they different? Is it part of this ITS strategy implementation, or should they be connected?
They're definitely related, and you know, of course, they would get slotted in with the activities plan. So I would say yes.
So this one, in fact, may change, and I think this maybe goes back to what Councillor Watkins was saying. There are a few different things that are related out there, and when we see them all separately, we have to connect the dots. But something like that, it would be nice if it was kind of put together so that we could see that there are 3 project charters or 2 project charters related to this ITS strategy implementation, or something like that. It might help us connect the dots a little bit more.
Sorry, Madam Chair, I don't know if I can jump in here. The 069 charter is the Intelligent Transportation Systems, which is a separate charter. It does utilize the Fiber City network proposed in the alternative, or not alternative, but the additional charter as its backbone, essentially, for the communication. So the fiber network is essentially a platform to which the ITS may be integrated and can have all the different technologies and kind of linked together. But the ITS charter itself, 069, is relevant to the transportation systems programming.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I was thinking IT, and I was thinking Gord, and I wasn't thinking transportation necessarily. And I should know that by now, but there's a lot of acronyms out there. So forgive me.
This is where someone puts in a joke saying intelligent and transportation doesn't go, but
very, very true. Okay, so we've hammered the package to death here. So let's go back up to the recommendations on page 7 of your package. Councillor Watkins, would you like to read these into the record?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Recommendations that the Community Growth and Infrastructure Standing Committee recommend to Council that, number 1, that administration update the 2022 to 2031 Municipal Growth Capital Plan to remove the project charters provided as an attachment to the March 8th, 2021 agenda report entitled Growth Capital Plan Removals. Number 2, that administration update the 2022 to 2031 Municipal Growth Capital Plan to include the project briefs provided as an attachment to the March 8th, 2021 agenda report entitled Growth Capital Plan Additions. Number 3, that Council undertake a review to consider additional removals from the 2022 to 2030 Growth Capital Plan. And number 4, that the revised 2022 to 2031 Municipal Capital Plan be included in the 2022 to 2024 business plan and budget document to be provided to Council in the fall of 2021, along with funding recommendations guided by the capital prioritization matrix.
There you go.
There you go.
A question from Mr. LaFleur. if a committee member wants to make an amendment to the financial forecast of the one edition of the community amenities project charter, which would be captured in recommendation number 2, what do we need to be, like, how do we need to amend that? First of all, I guess as a group, we need to come up with what kind of amendment we want, but have we done that? And do we need to make that amendment, I guess, is what I'm saying? Or
If you-
has administration heard what? Yes.
If you wish, are you hearing me?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I didn't know if my microphone was on. If it's just a question of doing what I would call a tweak to one of the line items, then you would keep the recommendation as it is to the end, and then comma, subject to the following, and then put in exactly the way you want to change it.
Okay.
So that's all you have to do. Just so you're basically you're moving a motion to amend the motion in point number 2 by adding a comma at the end and adding the following words, and then just whatever words describe the change you wish to make to that line item.
Okay. But I need to first accept these 4 recommendations, and then somebody can put forward an amendment. So the recommendations I accept as chair. So now I would ask committee members if they want to make an amendment around that one particular proposed addition on the community amenities, and what you might want that to read. It's a tough one. So I'm not seeing anybody want to put forward an amendment, which means it will stay as is. Oh, there you are. Mayor Herron.
Yeah, I was just thinking, it's only for perception wise. I would put in
question marks.
I would put in, I was going to say $14 million for the next 10 years, because I would sum up to 140. Does that work? It's rounded numbers. I think it just looks better.
Subject to the following $14 million towards
from, well, sorry, 2023 to 2031.
Right.
Yeah. Because really in the end it doesn't matter, but it's perception.
How do others feel?
Sorry, I'm just looking here on what are you trying? What's your amendment? Sorry.
Recommendation number 2, which you read in,
right,
is the updating of the municipal growth capital plan with the additions.
Correct.
Do we want the community amenities to go in as stated, or Mayor is saying we would amend that particular one, saying subject to the following financial implications are 14 million over, I don't know what the wording would be, 22 to 2031 in that particular one. That's the only one that we're talking about changing. So I'm just not sure exactly of the wording.
And in the end, it doesn't really matter.
With an investment of $14 million over
from 2023 to 2031.
Okay.
So we're changing it from 140 million to 14 million?
I'm changing it from a total of 138 to 140, but it's just, I'm putting in even numbers every year, right?
Oh, the numbers.
So it
okay.
doesn't look like we have prescribed projects every year.
Okay. Okay. I see what you're saying. I see what you're doing. Okay. Sorry. I was just unclear of what you were doing. I get it now. Sorry.
Okay.
Well,
Madam Chair, I had a question. I was frantically waving because I'm not part of the committee. I didn't want you to accept them, and because I can't enter into debate. So
well, you go ahead.
I had a question in relation to number 3, because I mean, there's no timetable in relation to say undertake a review. So I'm not sure if there needs to be a date in there. because the question that I had asked administration is when do they want this? Do they need it back before it goes to council? Or does it really matter from that, because we're talking far out in relation to the municipal growth plan? Can that happen as a workshop, as was mentioned in second quarter of 2021?
Okay,
That's-
so that's to
that's-
administration. Do we need to put a specific process in there, or can we just assume that a review of some kind will happen?
If I can just add, I don't know that it needs to actually be added to the motion, but we would like to sort of have finalized decisions on what this year's 10-year plan is going to look like probably by the end of May or middle of June, because that's, of course, otherwise then people potentially are updating charters that are no longer going to be there. So you know, if we could finalize that by May, it would be helpful for us.
So, but this is broad enough that it could be counselors going off on their own and looking through documents, or this could be a workshop for counselors to come together. Is that what I'm hearing? This leaves it open-ended?
I mean, I would not want a process where we individually went off and started picking and choosing.
Yeah, I agree.
I agree. Yeah.
I think we need to have some sort of a get together at a time that gives administration ample opportunity to incorporate what the changes would be. So if that's a half day or a 1 day workshop in whatever time set by, you know, whatever fits into administration's work plan works for me. That's my suggestion as a council member, not a committee member. Sorry, Mr. LaFleur, you're waving at me.
Yeah, I just would point out that what's being recommended is that council go back and look at this and make a decision. You cannot make a decision in a workshop.
Yeah,
You could call a committee of the whole meeting. That's an option. But I don't think you need to make that decision today as committee. If the council as a whole buys into the concept that you need to have one more look at it, and even if you add the time frame that Ms. McMorty has just articulated, council can do that, right? They can. You don't necessarily have to get into that level of detail coming out of committee. You're recommending a general direction. So I think you're fine.
Fair enough. I just wanted to make sure it was captured because it's probably going to come up at a council meeting when this comes forward.
It will.
Well, Mr. LaFleur, could we amend that third one, just saying via a workshop? Or
no,
via
not a workshop.
The whole?
It's a workshop.
The whole?
Yeah, a workshop would not work because you can't make any decisions there.
Right, committee of the whole, maybe.
Yeah, committee of the whole would be fine if you're okay with that.
Yeah, Councillor Watkins.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I recommend that we just leave these recommendations as is, because we're making a recommendation to council to do things. And we've given administration some direction, and we've had some questions, and we've asked for some questions of clarification. But I think this list to start adding things and taking things off the list at a committee level is, I think, a little inappropriate, because some of these things could have a serious impact on the community, obviously, and all of council should be making decisions about whether we should add to this list. I think here as committee, what we should really be looking at is just ways we can improve this recommendation, or points of clarification, or questions that have to be asked before this is brought before all of council. So I would just recommend that we just move the recommendation as is and let council deal with it. Like I said, we provided some direction to council. If we want to remove something from the list or add something from the list, maybe we should do that. But besides that, I would recommend that we just leave it as proposed.
To Mayor Herron, then I have not accepted the amendment to recommendation number 2. Do you want to withdraw, or do you want to carry on?
I wasn't proposing removing or adding anything. I was just talking about putting some even non-binding kind of placeholder numbers instead of what is perceived as accurate project charter numbers. So whether it's done here or at council, I don't care. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I just sort of crafted something in the chat for number 2. I wanted to know if Mr. LaFleur thought that would be okay for an amendment for number 2. not really that technical.
Yeah, that's a perfectly good addition. If the committee agrees with that, that makes sense. Yep. I'm
Okay,
fine.
I'm gonna accept your amendment, Mayor Herron.
Sorry, did you mean 2023 to 31?
Did I?
Yeah, well, the first year they have placeholding numbers in the current plan is 2023.
Oh, sure.
So, okay, 23. Yeah, I can move that.
Okay, so can you move? Yeah, you're going to move the amendment to recommendation number 2.
Yes.
Just a question, if you change it to 2023 to 31, is that 10 years?
It's not quite 10 years.
9 years.
Again, these are placeholding numbers, right?
Yeah.
Councilor Broadhead.
I think the intent is $14 million annually for the 8 years, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, maybe.
Are we spending 14 million annually or just 14 million? Yeah, that's where I'm confused.
No, it takes it to 140, which is just a.
Yes, annually. Yeah.
Yeah, it's annually. So Mayor, would you like to just read that in, your amendment? Because I'm going to accept your amendment once you read it in and make your adjustments.
Sure, I'll amend.
And with Mr. Hilt's addition to it, he's pointed out it should be 14 million per year.
Yeah,
which is
yeah.
correct.
Right.
So I will amend recommendation number 2 that the community managed proposed growth charter have an investment of 14 million per year from 2023 to 2031.
Okay, amendment accepted. So let's just, I guess we need to go through the amendment first, Mr. LaFleur, and then we'll get back to the main 4 recommendations.
Correct, that's procedurally correct, yes.
Yes, so we're just debating the amendment. And we've talked about it, but is there anything you'd like to say further, Mayor Herron?
No, I'm good.
Okay, I'm going to call for the question on the amendment. All those in favor? You two? And unanimous then. Okay, back to the 4 main recommendations with the amendment. Councillor Watkins, I've accepted those. Would you like to open? You're on mute. You're muted.
Okay, no, Madam Chair, I think there's been a lot of discussion on it already. And as I said, I think to change some of these or to take things off really should be dealt with at all of council. So and what we're really doing is just looking at ways we can improve these recommendations going forward to council. So I'm supportive of it, and I think we've done that with the minor amendment that the mayor has had. That's it.
Any other comments from anyone? Okay, I'll just say good work. That was a bit of a tough slog. But there was a lot of numbers in here and project charters, and we just had to work through it. And recognizing again that Mr. Scobel said this is a planning document, and that really is what it's meant to be, and we have to remember that. But we were able to take some things off of our list, and I think that's really important to remove where we can. So good job by everybody, and we will review possible more removals in the next little while through a community of the whole process. So anything to close, Councillor Watkins?
No, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much. All those in favor? And that's unanimous. That is it, everybody. Thank you so much for, thanks to staff and for all the work that goes into all of this. We appreciate you giving us this information so we can debate it as awkwardly as we did, but we still got through it. So much appreciated. Everybody have a good afternoon.
Good job, Chair and Jackie.
Yeah, right.
Talk to you
Good
later.
job, Jackie. Thanks. See you.
All right. See you later. Bye-bye.